you eat matters. I can give it instructions it understands, or I can give it something in a foreign language. Have you ever read something that was written somewhere else? And it sort of kind of looks like that should, and you got the parts and the pieces and the screws and it doesn't make sense. When we eat overly processed, uber-processed Frankenfoods, it's like a Frankenstein monster. It's not really food. It's a food-like substance. It gets to this point, and the body's like, anybody got any ideas? Anybody got ideas? And the rest of the body's like, I don't know what to do with that stuff. And a lot of those things are stored. A lot of those chemicals, a lot of the colorants, a lot of the flavorings, which are not FDA regulated, are chemically made up things. They're not natural. And so these things can be stored in our fat, and that's why a lot of the toxicity of our fat cells and why they can become so inflammatory. But I want to get into this point really quickly. Once again, look at that close-up of these little goblet cells. And I want you to see there's one cell layer. There's one cell, and they're holding hands tightly. They're called tight junctions. And if I expose it to the proper human diet, those junctions are happy. If I end up with a lot of inflammation, because I'm eating industrial seed oils, let me see if I can do that without coughing. Nope. This inflammation starts to swell. And what happens is these little cells, that thin, that mucus layer that Dr. Brian, I'm going to just have Dr. Brian talked about earlier, starts to thin out, especially if you're eating something with a lot of surfactants. Anybody heard of surfactants? A surfactant is in Dawn dishwashing. What does surfactant Dawn do if I put it in a greasy basin of water? It breaks it apart, right? I want you to think of your mucus layer that's so important for your what is it called? Your gut microbiome. I work in wound care, and we talk about biofilm, and that's not. But your gut microbiome, if I start to eat a lot of things, and a lot of your commercial salad dressings and things, they use surfactants to keep the oil and the water mixed. And it starts to destroy our microbiome. It starts to get through that mucosal layer, and it starts to hit this thin epithelium, and they're holding hands so tightly because they don't want the crap that you just ate, the bacteria and stuff, to get inside the bloodstream. They want to exit it out the anus, and when I eat inflammatory-based things, that doesn't happen. So we've got these intestinal mucosal cells, and they're healthy on your left. Then they start to become inflamed, and they're like, I can't. Have you ever seen the movie where they're holding on by the fingertips? I can't go by, And they lose that grip on each other. And now I have a little tiny microspace. Have you ever heard of the words leaky gut? Have you ever heard of leaky gut syndrome? Many times it's because of these industrial seed oils and all the uber-processed foods that we're eating. They're not the natural human diet. They're not the proper human diet. We were never meant to be able to disassemble this type of stuff. And so the remnants are left over. And now with this space, because your capillaries, let me go back to this one for a minute. Look how close your capillaries, the artery and the vein, are to those cells. They're right there. They want to absorb. Blood brings in the groceries and it takes out the trash. And so it's going to pick up whatever it can. And so when I have this disassociation between those tight junctions and I start to have these problems, and it was spoken about earlier a little bit, autoimmune disease, bacteria or food particles or things get into my bloodstream, and my macrophages and all of my immune system goes, enemy alert, attack, attack, attack. And so, like when my daughter had chickenpox and she had the autoimmune response and became type 1 diabetic, we can end up with a lot of autoimmune diseases because of the non-health of our gut. So the more we can eat whole foods, the less likely that these bad villains are going to get into our bloodstream and set up a cascade of inflammation that goes throughout our entire body.